Hi guys, tonight I'm going to show you an art journal. This layout is my version of Vicky's Bloom art journal layout. The link will be in the description below. This is my first attempt at an art journal. I made a lot of mistakes, but I did learn as I went along. Vicky inspired me to start an art journal, so I wanted my first layout to reflect that, so enjoy. I started out with Ranger Multi-Medium Matte, and I'm going to brush that down on my page, and then I'm going to use Tim Holtz Ideology tissue paper. I love this stuff. It's so great for putting down an easy background. You just have to make sure that you thoroughly coat your pages with the multi-matte medium. And I did miss a few spots, but I will correct that in a moment. And I just used that stick to push out any wrinkles or bubbles that I had, and I'm going to add medium to the corners where I missed, and that corrected my problem. Now I'm going to take my scissors and just go around the whole journal and trim off the excess tissue paper. I'm going to save this for other projects. And now I want to take out my dryer and dry things. I want to make sure it's thoroughly dry before I move on to my next step. Now the next thing I'm going to do is adhere the first page to the inside cover. They were half adhered anyway, and it was difficult to flip that first page open, so I decided to adhere the two together by using my matte medium, and it just reinforced the first page and made the book easier to open. And I'm drying it again to make sure that it's thoroughly dry before I move on. And again, I'm going to use that stick to push out any wrinkles or bubbles. And now I'm going to move on to using some gesso. This is Pro Art gesso, and what I want to do is use some water, and I'm going to mix the two. As I brush on the gesso, every once in a while you'll see that I dip my brush in the water. I want to kind of make a gesso wash. I want it very thin so that I can still read that text. In real life, you can see the text through the gesso even better than you can on the video. It came out exactly the way I wanted, a nice thin layer of gesso over the text. I'm going to take out my dryer and I'm going to dry this thoroughly. I love gesso because it's really simple and easy to dry. I want to make sure it's completely dry before I move on. And as you can see, the text shows through perfectly. Next, I'm going to take out my gelatos. I've never used them before. This is my first time. I'm going to pull out some blues and some greens, and I want to make a background of grass and a sky. These are so super smooth. I absolutely love them. They were so easy to use. And you can spread it with your finger, but I decided to use a baby wipe, and as you can see, they spread just wonderful. And they make a nice even coat of color. And I'm just going to add in a little bit more blue in some spots that I want it to be darker. And I'm spreading it around with my finger. I'm just keeping my finger damp by touching the baby wipe every once in a while. Here I'm adding the grass. I think I used lime and pistachio. And again, I'm going to use my baby wipe to spread this color around. And as you can see, it just blends so wonderfully. I absolutely adore these gelatos. I'm so glad that I purchased them. And here I'm just going around and removing some of the color. I wanted some of the white to come through so that it looked more like a sky. And I'm adding some darker blue around the edges for some shading. And again, using my baby wipe to blend things out. And I'm going to continue to add color here, just some spots that I want to be darker and lighter, and I'm going to continue using my finger to spread the gelatos. They're so simple and easy to use. I highly recommend them if you do not have them. And I'm going to work with the sky a little bit more, adding blue, light and dark, so I achieve the background that I'm looking for. And there, I like it, so I'm going to seal it with multi-matte medium. Now the key to this is to make sure that your brush is dry. If your brush is not dry, it will smear the gelatos, so you want to make sure your brush is dry. I'm sealing it, giving it a non-porous background so I can use my pit markers later on in the layout to shade it. And I'm going to dry it again and make sure that it's thoroughly dried. I think I need a Ranger dryer. I'm going to have to add that to my shopping list. Here is the Crafter's Workshop mini cloud stencil and some Dreamweaver embossing paste. This is the first time I used embossing paste. It was a little difficult at first. I wasn't sure what I was doing. And then probably within a minute it just started to flow nicely. It was really simple to use. I wanted those clouds to have a really thick textured look to them, so I didn't scrape any of the extra paste off of the stencil. I just wanted them to look very, very fluffy, and once I removed the stencil, the clouds looked exactly the way I wanted them to. Look at that great texture on the clouds. I'm wiping my stencil so I can add some clouds to the left side of the layout. And just adding a little bit more embossing paste. It's really simple to use. It's really fluffy and light. And again, I'm leaving it thicker and just wiping up where I went over on the stencil. And here I just wanted to add a half a cloud. I chose that top right corner. It just was the perfect spot for it. And I wanted to add one on the bottom left side of the page, but it just was getting too crowded. So right now I'm just cleaning up my stencil. You want to clean the embossing paste off your stencil right away because it's very difficult to remove once it's dry. And that paste was easy to put back in the container and very easy to use my baby wipe to just wipe everything up. And my background came out exactly the way I wanted. I'm just drying the clouds lightly here. And I'm thrilled with how it looks. Look at that gorgeous dimension on the clouds. Okay, next I have my Stampers Anonymous Ultimate Grunge stamp set. I'm just taking out that center stamp and using my archival coffee ink, and I'm just randomly stamping. There's no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing here. I just wanted to add some brown in with the green and the blue. That is my Heidi Swapp Doily Flower stencil, and that's a Delusion spray. This is the first time I used the Delusion sprays and I really loved it. It has a really pretty sparkle to this white spray. And I'm going to take my dryer out and dry this. Now I did have a problem with this later on in the layout, and I'll explain when we get to that. Now I'm inking up my Hero Arts Flower Text stamp, and I love this stamp. It is just so gorgeous. And I'm using Tuxedo Black ink by Memento, and I'm just rubbing it. I think it's easy to put the paper on top of the stamp and rub it with your hand like I did versus taking the stamp and stamping it on the paper. I always get a better image when I do it this way. And I stamped it out twice because I want 2 images of each flower so that I can color them and lay them on top of each other. Now I'm just taking out my Copics, and I absolutely love coloring with my Copics. So this was probably my favorite part of the layout. And I'm just shading the flower. And that's why I used Momentum Tuxedo ink, because I wanted to make sure I could color with my Copics. Now I'm going to fussy cut these flowers out, and because it's a really basic shape, it was really easy to cut out. There was no problem. I'm on to coloring the second daisy flower. As you can see, the one on the right is complete, and I'm going to cut this one out as well, and I'm going to layer the 2 on top of each other. I won't be using dimensional foam. I'm just going to curl up the leaves so that it gives it some dimension. And I love how it came out. Now I'm just going to add some green in the center, and I'm going to add some stickles and add a little bling and sparkle to the flower. And this was probably my favorite flower on the whole layout. Now I'm on to the next flower. No rhyme or reason to why I picked this color. I just wanted the flower to be red. And there it is, it's complete. And then I'm on to fussy cutting the second flower. I'm going to use my Tombow multi-adhesive to adhere the 2 together, and I'm curling up the leaves on that flower as well. And I'm going to add stickles to the center of this flower so it matches the other one. And there are my 2 flowers. They are complete. This I learned from Vicki. I'm just putting down some green color, and I'm going to cut this in my Fiskars paper cutter, and I'm going to create stems for the flowers. Really simple and easy. And now I'm on to coloring and cutting out the leaves. Now I know this looks crazy and tedious, but it actually wasn't so bad because the leaves are oval shaped. They're really easy shapes to cut out. There wasn't a lot of work involved in that, believe it or not. It was a little time consuming, but not too bad. I shaded and colored the leaves with my Copics. And there are all my flowers. They're all complete, my leaves and my stem. And these are the stickles I used for the centers. Now I'm going to place my flowers down on the layout and decide how I want them to look. I actually want to follow the pattern of the stamp, so I'm going to copy how they are on the stamp. So I'm just moving the flowers around, adjusting them the way I want. Now I'm going to use my Tombow adhesive to stick down these stems. And I love how this came out. Just absolutely love it. And I'm adhering the flowers. That yellow flower is my favorite. Definitely my favorite in the whole layout. It just came out so beautiful. And I'm just curling up the leaves to give it dimension. And I love how it came out. And again, I matched the design on the stamp. Now on the leaves I did not match the stamp. It was a little bit difficult to do that, so I just randomly placed the leaves. I didn't want to get too picky about their placement. I just wanted it to look nice. Once I got the way I liked it, I'm going to use multi-medium to adhere them down with a small brush. This is where I ran into some problems with the delusional spray. If you remember earlier in the layout, I used my Heidi Swap flower doily stencil and my Delusion spray. As I'm brushing on this multi-medium, I'm lifting up the white and I'm spreading it around on the stems and the leaves. So basically the stems and the leaves are getting like a white cast on top of them that I don't like. But I figured I would fix that, and I do fix that. So I just continued on with putting on the leaves, and I'm going to show you in just a bit how I corrected putting that white all over the stems and the leaves the way I did. I love the way the dimension is coming out on this page. Now I'm going to go back and correct that problem with the whitewash of the Delusion spray. I'm using my Copics marker, and I'm going to go in and recolor all my stems and leaves. I'm just shading them with different colors of green, and I'm going to get rid of that whiteness that's on top of the leaves and the stems. And just bring out the leaves and the stems again. As you can see, it's corrected. I'm going to brush multi-medium on top of them, but I'm going to be careful not to pull up any of that white like I did the first time. And now you can see that the stems and leaves look perfect. Now I'm on to this stamp set. It's from Sizzix and Hero Arts. I need the butterflies from it, so I'm going to stamp these out. I use my Cherry Cobbler Stampin' Up! Ink to stamp these down on paper so that I can color them with my Copics. Now this is dye ink, so you want to make sure that you dry this ink very thoroughly before you attempt to color with Copics on it, and it dries really well. And here I'm just adding some different shades of orange and yellow to my butterflies. Again, I love to color with my Copics, so this was probably my favorite part of this whole layout, was being able to use my Copic markers for it. And I'm just adding some green here and some shading. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fussy cut these butterflies to add them to the layout. And again, very basic shapes, so they were really easy to cut out. Now this was probably another huge mistake. I stamped the Stampin' Up! Ink directly on the page onto a non-porous surface, and that was bad because that ink took forever to dry and it was very smeary, and I really needed to use archival ink here, but I didn't have it in the color that I wanted. I have definitely added color archival ink to my shopping list and hoping to pick up some colors this week. It was the only thing I had on hand, but like I said, I learned as I went along in this project. And I'm just fussy cutting that last butterfly out. And I'm going to add that to the layout as well. And I'm going to use multi-matte medium for that. And I'm going to curl up the edges of the wings so this way it looks like it has some dimension as well. I'm going to give them a little bit of a shot with my dryer, hopefully to dry that ink in the back, and I love the way it came out. Did I mention I love that yellow flower? Now I'm just covering them with multi-matte medium again, and that's just in case I want to use my markers to shade with them. Here are my big brush markers from Faber-Castell. They are the shading brushes. They're Indian ink actually, and what's nice about them is when you apply them to a non-porous surface, you have a short period of time that you can blend them, and basically I'm just using my finger to blend them. I'm actually moistening my finger on a baby wipe and then using it to blend the ink. And like I said, you have a short period of time to move that ink around, and it moves around really well. But once it dries, it is permanent, and I love the dimension that it was giving the background. I felt that the background was a little too flat, so I wanted to add some shading to it. And I liked it so much that I decided to go around the whole entire layout. As you can see there, I'm just shading the grass area, and now I'm doing underneath the flowers. And I'm just so pleased on how it's coming out at this point. Just adding a little bit more shading here and there in different areas. And I really love the final result. Now I'm just using a blue big brush pen to go around the clouds. I want to get them to pop off the page. They're a little harder to blend with my fingers, so I'm just using this blending stub to go around and move that ink. I'm kind of using a combination of my finger and the blending stub. And I wanted to give the background of those clouds a little dimension so that they popped off the page more. Now I'm using my pit marker to go around and outline the stems and the leaves. This one was a little thicker than I would have liked. Next time I will use a finer point, but it wasn't too bad. Now I'm going to use my worn text alpha letters from Tim Holtz to do my quote. My quote for this is going to be "Grow where you are planted." And this is the small worn text, and I think they work together so well, so I definitely wanted to use this. Now I know I said my quote was "Grow where you are planted," and I missed the H there between the W and the E, but don't worry, I will correct that before I stamp it down. And I'm just placing my letters down to see how I want that quote to go. I decided to put the "grow" in an arch right between the grass and the sky. I'm using my Ranger's Archival black ink. I love this ink. I'm really looking forward to adding the colored inks to my collection soon. And I didn't want the letters to be completely straight. See, there we go. I put that H in. I kind of wanted them to look a little wonky, but they ended up a little bit more straight than I would have liked in the final result when I stamped them. I'm just pressing down and stamping that. Now I have the missing E. I use this small acrylic block to put in stamps of any missing letters. Now I'm just going to do the last part of the quote. I'm originally from New York and I'm out here in Missouri, and I just feel like this quote really calls to me of "Grow where you are planted." I feel like I've been planted here. And I do want to grow here in my new location. So there's the A. I need to add that in as well. And again, I'm using that black archival ink. And I need to add the E in as well. And I'm not going to do anything additional to the title besides dry it. I love the way it came out. Now I'm taking my dilutional ink spray and I'm just splattering the white all around. And I love how this came out. It has a really nice sparkle to it, and it's just beautiful. There I just blotched it a little bit, so I'm cleaning that up, and this is the final result of the page, and I absolutely love it. I just think it came out so much better than I expected, so I'm really pleased with it. I love the dimension on those flowers and the butterflies. It just feels like they're popping off the page. I just truly love it, and the clouds came out so nice and fluffy looking. I'm going to show you some pictures of this as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was my first art journal page and my first voiceover. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them below. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want me to continue doing them, just leave it in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!